Good morning. Welcome to the United States Sports Academy and our weekly sports talk program. I'm Steve Butler, and I'll be your host this morning. With me to my right is Dr. Fred Cromartie, our Director of Doctoral Studies, and to my left is Dr. Brett Simmermacher, our Chairman of Sports Coaching. Well, the college football season finally wound down last Monday night with Alabama's thrilling 45-40 win over Clemson. We actually do have one game left. We have the Senior Bowl here in Mobile, Alabama. The stadium is probably about 7 miles from where we're sitting right now. And that's a college all-star game on the last Saturday in January. So
January 30th.
It's always a pretty good game. I think Alabama had 8 players invited this year. Auburn only had 1, but there'll be good players from all over the country. Some of the best players don't get to play because they're not actually seniors, even though they're coming up from the draft. They pretty much kept that rule in place that even if you declare early for the draft, you can't play in that game unless you're a senior. But, people down here know, and Alabama won their 4th national championship in the last 7 years. Nick Saban's 5th overall. So it was a great game. I think it lived up to all the expectations. I think the championship committee has gotten really lucky the first 2 years in that we've had 4 powerhouse teams from powerhouse conferences in the mix each of the first 2 years. And so the bowl selection committee or the playoff selection committee has actually been pretty fortunate in the way things just worked out for them in the first 2 years. So what do you guys think of the championship game and the football season in general, Fred?
Thought it was a great game. It lived up to everything that people expected. They thought that it was not going to be a defensive juggernaut, which it wasn't. And the quarterback for Clemson is a real deal. He's a great ball player. He's a great leader, great young man. Alabama, their players stepped up. We had guys step out of the shadows that hadn't done anything basically all year long. Next thing you know, we've got a tight end and the offensive scheme that just tore it up. So it did quite well in that. And the grand picture of it all in that, I think that it was all right in terms of the overall season for college football in that. College football did exactly what they wanted to do. They made money, and they're going to continue to make money. And, people are going to be rewarded from the coach's perspective in that. And, we get back into the same argument over and over again, whether players should be paid and all that good stuff. We know it's not going to happen. But the simple fact of the matter is those that are the haves are getting a whole lot of it.
Brett?
To me, it came down to the I think Saban used a little bit of Sweeney's bring your own guts saying and pulled the onside kick in a crucial part of the game, and I think that turned the game around. Clemson they really didn't bat an eye though when they got down at any point in the game. They came right back down and scored. A couple times they had to kick field goals, but they did get points out of it. And it was everything that I expected it to be. And, I really did feel that Alabama was going to win the game, but I thought it was going to be closer than most people thought it was going to be, which it was.
The only person that said it was going to be a low-scoring defensive struggle was Urban Meyer right before the game. He did predict Alabama. And, when you look at it, they both scored the same number of times. That Alabama had 1 touchdown where Clemson had a field goal, and then they went for 2 the one time to try to cut it to 8. But other than that, it was pretty even.
Well, it was pretty much a foregone conclusion at the beginning that Alabama was destined to win because Lee Corso picked Clemson.
Yeah, it helps.
They always go against Lee.
It helps when Nick Saban's brother is the head official. That never hurts. Well, all I got to say about the football season is this. Auburn beat Memphis. Memphis beat Ole Miss. Ole Miss beat Alabama. Therefore, Auburn is better than Alabama. So we have the transitive property.
And what bowl game did y'all go to? Wait a minute. It was in Birmingham.
It was the Birmingham Bowl. Here at the Sports Academy, we have a game of the week every week, and then we have a college football game of the year each year. And pretty famous artist named Daniel Moore does a really nice print each year for the game of the year. And right now, today's actually the last day of voting for the
voting is over.
Voting is over for the game of the week for the bowls.
It's game of the year.
Okay.
We don't know what game it is yet.
Well, anyway, what we do is have for a game. Our last game of the week is all the bowls together. So I know for a fact that I don't think the championship game was the best of the bowl games. But I'll ask you guys, which do you think was the best of the bowl games?
Well, again, everybody's favored towards the championship game because it was so competitive and it had the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows and, you know, the nuances that transpired. Who would have thought they would have had a successful onside kick? Who would have thought they're going to bring in the tight end to catch a couple of balls? Who would have thought Kenyon Drake would have come and run for, you know, a 95-yard kickoff return for a touchdown? But I'm with you. I think it was a great game. But the game that stands out to me the most, I'm going with TCU coming back from 31 down. That was phenomenal. That was a game that just solidified it. I mean, it's one of those ones you can Devo that, TiVo or whatever it is, and play it back. It's compelling.
Yeah, I was watching that game up till halftime. I said, "Wow, looks like this game's over." I turned the channel and I was watching something else, another sports game of some kind. I think it was basketball. And then on the bottom line, it says 31-10, then 31-17. I said, I'm going back to this game. So I really do think that was the most exciting game, the most, I don't know, what's his name? Patterson changes his shirt at halftime for good luck. I thought baseball coaches were
Generous.
Yeah. So he comes out in a black shirt from purple.
No, he changed it black to. He went from purple
to black, or
black to purple.
Yeah. Either way, superstition, and to me that was the game. I mean, like you said, the stage, all the stuff that goes around the national championship. Yes, it came down to the fourth quarter. It was a tie game going in, or they were down 3 going into the fourth quarter, and then tied it up briefly there at the beginning, and then went off for 24.
Another thing that made that game so exciting is both teams were playing their backup quarterback. TCU's quarterback got in trouble and got sent home, and Oregon's quarterback got hurt very early in the game. So, and both backup quarterbacks played super. I think that the real reason why they let that game go to overtime is they needed overtime to cover the over the over under for entertainment purposes only. But they did make it to the over once they got to overtime. I think it was like 72 or something. Anyway, so it's kind of funny. We didn't talk about this earlier, but we all agreed that the TCU Oregon game was the best of the bowl games. And then another thing that's interesting, and if I was a betting person, I would bet. I don't know what the result. Brett's the chairman of the College Game of the Year committee. I have no idea what the results are, but if I had to make a bet, I would say probably most of our folks are going to vote for the championship game. But what's interesting is if you walk down through our art gallery, we have the last 9 years of portraits up by Danny Moore, and 6 of them were not the championship game. Only 3 of them were the championship game. There was the Alabama shutout of LSU, Auburn defeating Oregon, and then last year, I don't think last year's was the best game, but I think people voted for it because it was the first championship game.
That could be
the one with Ohio State and Oregon. But this year, I would imagine it's going to be the Alabama Clemson game. Even though there were some great games during the season, we all remember back to Michigan State. Michigan State wouldn't have even been in the playoffs if it would have been for that incredible finish. That was the game of the week when they beat Michigan.
Yeah.
For some reason, the guy decided to throw the ball instead of kick it. We all know what happened there. Then we had the Miami Duke game with the 8 laterals, and most people would argue that a couple of them were forward and one guy was down before he got it. There was a block in the back where the penalty flag was actually thrown and for some reason picked up, even though
the player came out on the field before he scored the touchdown.
But there was
game's over.
There was no ban on the field.
Game's over. Yeah.
Interestingly, one year. Our game of the year was a game during the first week of the season when Appalachian State beat Michigan in the Big House.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good football games every year. I think the like I said before, the selection committee has gotten lucky. The first 2 years that we've had, when you think about it, we've had 8 great teams from great programs, historical programs, from historical conferences the first 2 years. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next year.
Did you see where Long stepped down?
I did not.
Yes.
He stepped down from the
Chair.
position.
Mm-hmm.
He had 2 more years, but he stepped down.
Now that's probably good because he's a great guy and he's a good athletic director at Arkansas, but he just didn't look the part when he came. He just didn't look smart when he came out there and tried to explain. He needs to get somebody. How the president has a press secretary. That committee needs to get somebody who come out and talk to people and explain.
Paul Feinbaum?
No, what's the lady's name? The lady's called Paul Feinbaum. Phyllis?
Yeah, Phyllis, yes.
Kenny Name interviewed Phyllis last night on Sports Center.
Oh, boy.
She can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she would never say anything if Alabama wasn't number one. We went through the preseason. Well, we've got the final poll here. Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Stanford 3, Ohio State 4, Oklahoma 5, Michigan State 6. So based on impressive bowl wins, they moved Stanford and Ohio State ahead of the 2 teams that lost in the semifinals. One of the really interesting ones was at number 8 was Houston.
Yeah.
Who, interestingly, 11 of the teams in the final Associated Press top 25 were not in the preseason Associated Press top 25. So, we've said on this show a few times that that we could probably pick the preseason top 25 for 20 years from now and get most of them right, because the preseason poll is always going to be the same schools.
Well, the preseason favorite next year is not Alabama. You're a national champion. It's Clemson.
Is it?
Yes. Clemson.
They've got more coming back.
Yep.
And Stanford will have one thing I will say about the championship game. I think it's pretty obvious that the Heisman voters messed it up because there's no doubt about who the best player in college football was, and that was proven Monday night. And Derrick Henry had a great game, over 150 yards with 3 touchdowns.
158. But
that's
not too shabby either.
Yeah, but the quarterback from Clemson was by far the best player on the field. People have been saying all year about how the front 7 of Alabama may be the best front 7 in the history of college football, and they fought 565 yards of total offense, and he set a bowl game record for total yards by a quarterback.
And O.J. Howard too.
Yeah.
208 yards.
Yeah.
2 touchdowns, and nobody was in sight.
We knew those were blown coverages.
Blown coverage is blown coverage.
Run down there and catch those and run them in.
If
they don't cover them.
I want to see it.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that a guy that's 6'5", 260 pounds,
Yeah,
I don't see
Yeah.
But
that just goes back where you give Nick and Lane an opportunity to prepare themselves, and they did, because all year long you did not see plays go to the tight end like that.
Yeah.
It was blocking schemes or short slants and things of that nature. But
the first touchdown they put them both way out to the right, and there was only one defender out there. Mm-hmm. So the defender had to make a choice. I think Lane Kiffin may have set himself up for some other employment in the near future based on the results of that game. If I was him, I'd stay in Alabama because he's still relatively young. He's still
relatively young, but remember, there's still a lot of people out there that remember how everything played out with him leaving
Southern Cal
and Tennessee. So they're not really willing and able to take that leap of faith with just doing it. So. No, he's proven himself. There's no question about that. Everybody said from day one that he was a better offensive coordinator than he is a head coach.
Yeah, some people are just meant to be coordinators.
Yeah.
Right? Charlie Weiss comes to mind. I remember right before the Notre Dame Ohio State game on January 1st, they made one of the announcers made the comment that today, being 1 January, was the first day in 6 years that Charlie Weiss was not being paid by Notre Dame. And I remember 3 years ago now when Notre Dame and Alabama played for the championship. Yep. I guess that's 4 years ago now. When Notre Dame and Alabama played for the national championship, that year Charlie Weiss actually made more money than Brian Kelly did as the head coach of Notre Dame. So Charlie Weiss is getting paychecks from all over the place now, but he's no longer getting them from Notre Dame. Okay, we're running short on time, so let's take a look at the conference standings for the bowls. The SEC, to nobody's surprise, led the pack at 8-2. Pac-12 was 6-4. The Big Ten was 5-5, and the ACC was 4-4. The Big 12 was the only
4-5.
4-5. I'm sorry, and then the Big 12 was 3-4. And there's a lot of inter matches between those. A lot of SEC Big Ten games. Last year, the Big Ten kicked the SEC's butt in both games. Shows the other way around. The SEC pretty much dominated. The only SEC team that lost to the Big Ten team was Florida, and they pretty much got thumped by Michigan. But so as we look forward to the 2016 season, there's probably I couldn't find one, but somewhere out there's probably a preseason poll already.
It's developing. That's what I heard this morning. I don't think it's fully intact, but they did say that the number one projected team for next year would be Clemson.
Makes sense, especially if all their kids come back. Alabama loses their quarterback. I don't think Derrick Henry is officially declared for the draft yet, but he's a senior, but he could come back because of his redshirt year. So we'll see what happens. It was a great college football season. You know, we're here in Alabama, in the heart of football country. I would say that in this building, it's probably about 60-40 in favor of Alabama. The rooting interest of the crowd. So, you know, we can't comment on the intelligence of those 60% that root for Alabama, but the 40% that root for Auburn, sure they are pretty intelligent folks. We hope every one of you had a great bowl season. We hope your team won, whoever that is. We think it was a great bowl season, capped off by a great championship game, and we'll announce here in the next couple of days who the winner of our college game of the year is. And for those of you who are in Powerball states, go out and get your tickets. I heard on the radio on the way to work this morning, they're estimating $1.5 billion jackpot. If you live in a state like we do that doesn't have any lottery, you have to drive. But luckily for us, it's only 35 miles to Florida. So I've got mine. Fred's got his. Brett's got his. So if you haven't bought your ticket yet, don't waste your time because the winner's already sitting somewhere in this room. But hope everybody has a great week. Keep those ideas coming, what you want us to talk about. It's at sportstalk@ussa.edu. And we'll see you again next week at 11:30, Wednesday morning at 11:30 Central Time. Have a great week in sports, everybody.